Welcome to the Four Bells, where we are doing workout from home number 86. We're in week 4 of our push-up cycle, which means now things should be getting spicy. Even more spicy than they have been. What levels of spice will we reach? Who knows? Today, when we are looking at our push-ups, we are trying to build on the things we've been doing in the last 3 weeks. But to get us ready for push-ups today, we are going to do a warm-up. So in our warm-up today, we've got 3 things to look at. We're going to do some slow shoulder touches for 10 reps. That's 5 per side. Looking not only at shoulder stability, but a little bit of anti-rotation through the core. From there, side plank rotations, where we're looking at lateral chain stability with the abs, as well as shoulder stability, and a little bit of rotation at the same time. And then last but not least, the old down dog toe touch, which is a great way of looking at flexibility throughout the whole body, as well as a bit of rotation for the old T-spine. We're going to do those 3 things 3 times in the warm-up. Let's take a look at them. Starting with the old slow shoulder tap. Usually we do 10 slow, 10 fast. Today we're just doing 10 slow, which means the hands should be shoulder width. I'm going to have the feet roughly about hip width, just to make sure that I'm not wobbling around all over the place. I press the hand into the mat, touch the shoulder, hold for a second, and we're going to go from side to side, nice and slow, with minimal hip wiggles. From there, I'm then going to come into a side plank, which means elbow directly below the shoulder. I can either stack the feet, or if that's very challenging for you, you have one foot in front of the other. I'm going to push the hip up, looking at the fingers. I rotate through, up to the ceiling, and we're going to do 5 on one side, and then 5 on the other. Last but not least, the old down dog toe touch. I don't like a mat for this, makes me feel like I slide around a bit. So I'm going to have the hands directly below the shoulders, knees directly below the hips. We dig the toes down, downward facing dog position, right hand touches left toes, left hand touches right toes. I can look through and rotate more, but either way, we're doing 5 per side for 10 total reps. So 10 slow shoulder touches, 5 per side of the old side plank rotation, and then last but not least, down dog toe touches for 10. We're doing that for 3 rounds in the warm-up today. In today's strength piece, push-ups is the focus. We have 5 sets. Each set 3 minutes long, split into 2 90-second windows of time. So in our first 90 seconds, that's where we'll be working on our push-ups today. So with our push-ups, just like we did in the last few weeks, we're trying to build in intensity or volume, depending on what your goals are. So if we look at this side of the board, this is the first piece we're doing for 90 seconds. If I'm level 1 and I'm doing scaled push-ups, I'm now doing 3 to 6 reps. We were doing 4 to 6 last week. 1 rep may not make a difference in your mind, but the intention here by bringing those numbers down means you're trying to get as close to the floor as possible. It should be very, very tough, these reps at this point. From there, we get to level 2, regular push-ups on the floor. We bump the volume out to 20 reps each set now. That's a lot of volume. It's 100 reps across all working sets. And of course, if you can do all 20, feel free to do so. But remember, if you did 10 reps last week, then try and do 11 this week, or 12, and just try and bump it out slowly to make sure you get the total amount of volume you can. Last but not least, same rules apply with the one-arm push-up as it does with the scale push-up. The reps come down 2 reps per arm, which means those 2 reps should require a rest in between each one. It shouldn't be 1 and 2, and that's it. Easy, have a nice little break. It should be very, very tough. So that's our first 90 seconds. From there, our second 90 seconds is rear delt flies. We're going to have some dumbbells or some light weights, working the posterior of the shoulders to make sure we've got a nice, balanced and healthy shoulder girdle. Let's take a look at these guys. With our push-ups, I've been talking about it now for how many weeks? So many weeks now I've talked about it. And I don't know how many ways I can say trying really hard, but I still mean it. We've still got to try hard. We've still got 2 weeks left. It's 2 weeks left of opportunity for you to get stronger and hopefully get towards your goals. So that goal could be your first ever push-up, your first ever one-arm push-up, or getting a crazy amount of reps that you've never had before when it comes to your regular push-ups. So you know by now what I expect of you, whether you're in scaled position, whether you're on the floor. We have that universal hand position where we bend the bar, pits at the elbow face forward, and whether I'm doing it scaled, push-ups on the floor, or one arm, is trying to keep that nice happy shoulder position is what we're looking for. So if we're doing level 1 by now, we should be getting lower and lower and lower down those steps, and those steps should be a real grind. If we're doing level 2 by now, of course we want to make sure that we're consistent in our range of motion, which would be chest towards the floor, nose just gently booping the floor, and that should be our push-ups. And of course, if we're doing some kind of one-arm variation and we're setting up, it's all about trying to get the hand as far as possible. From there, tenting the hand, or we like to call it the spider sometimes. And then from there, it's trying to get the hand as close to the hip as possible. So of course, play around with how far out can we get the hand, how close down can we get the hand. It should be very challenging. What we should be thinking as we're getting towards our final one-arm push-up variations is just like a little bit of assistance, right? The least bit of assistance you can to make sure that your push-ups are as challenging as they can be. So if we're doing scaled 3 to 6, I'd rather have you do 3 than 6. If it comes to level 2, we're doing 5 to 20 reps, get as high up as we can and keep those reps for as long as you can. And if you're doing level 3, one-arm push-ups 2 and 2, those 2 reps should be extremely difficult. Have fun, try hard. Look, it says it right there. It says rear delt flies. That's what we're doing, rear delt flies. For rear delt flies, you need 2 light weights. I'm going to use these 2 5-pound dumbbells. I would say in terms of rear delt flies, we are looking at a very small muscle group, which means that we don't need to be going crazy with the weights. Generally, I've seen in the gym over the years, because we're doing a fairly high volume as well, we're trying to get a lot of work into those pretty weak muscles and get some activation into them. Massive weights are not going to help you. I'd probably say 5s, 10s, 15s, maybe 20 pounds per hand at a push, but that's really as far as we should be going. I'm going to push the hips back into a hinge position, so very similar to a Romanian deadlift, making sure that I'm not rounding the upper back, but keeping the chest up. I raise up into my rear delt fly and I'm controlling the descent. Up, slow down. Up and slow down. As I'm doing my rear delt flies, I'm trying to avoid a few things. Number 1 is lead with the elbows. Number 2 is lead with the face. And number 3 is all of those combined with like a crazy flapping seagull technique. We try to keep a neutral spine up and slowly down. 15 rear delt flies. Start light, get a little bit heavier if you can. Today's conditioning piece is 15 minutes long, 900 seconds of joy, where we have 3 1-minute stations that we are going to do 5 times. In each one of our minute stations, that minute we'll be working for 40 seconds, and then we have a 20-second rest or transition onto the next exercise. So exercise number 1 is a bear crawl. So regardless of the space you have, we're going to be bear crawling continuously for 40 seconds. Even if you find the bear crawl is very tough for you, we're going to try not to put our knees on the floor. We're going to take a look at how that should look in a second. From there, minute number 2 is going to be human makers, also known as man makers, people builders, bitch builders, all the fun things we call them here at the gym. We are going to be doing a dumbbell complex, which means a bunch of movements together, and those collective movements make 1 rep. We're going to see how many reps we can do in 40 seconds. After that 20-second break, we then come into our final movement, which we'll be doing for 40 seconds on, is Russian twists. So you can find that you can either make them very easy with body weight, or you can make them a bit more challenging. We don't need to go super heavy with the Russian twist. The intention is to light the abs up as much as possible. Let's take a look at all 3 of these and how they come together in the conditioning piece. Bear crawls. When it comes to bear crawls, a bit of transverse locomotion or like contralateral locomotion, but you do it every day. When you're walking around, we move opposite hand, opposite leg, which is what we are always doing in our bear crawls. So when it comes to bear crawls, of course, what size space do you have at home? Do you have like a tiny little prison cell? Maybe you're just doing 1 or 2 steps forward, 2 steps backwards. That's perfectly fine. Maybe you've got the longest basement in the world and you can go on forever. All I'm trying to think about is during our 40 seconds of work is the knees not touching the floor. So try to stay on the toes, stay on the hands. So I'm going to come down into my bear crawl, opposite hand, opposite leg, and I can either keep the knees low, I can push the butt up high. Whatever you want to do is fine by me, but we do not let the knees touch the floor for 40 delightful seconds. With the human maker, it is a complex, which means we've got a bunch of movements to do. So let's go through them very quickly. I'm going to take my dumbbells, put them on the floor, shoulder width. I then step or jump out into a plank. I perform a row, a push-up. That push-up could also be done on the knees. I come back up into my plank, I jump in, stand up, little clean to the shoulders. I perform a squat, push press, back to the shoulders, back to the hips, and we start again. So with man maker, human maker, people maker, bilge builder, you're going to find there's not many reps you can do in 40 seconds, but we're trying to move continuously. With the Russian twist, yes, it's a controversial exercise because it involves bracing and rotation through the spine. But the real issue I find with the Russian twist is a lack of engagement for a lot of people. A lot of people would like to do what I like to call just dipping your toes in. So what does dipping your toes in mean? I mean, imagine if you were sitting in a bath, you just kind of splash in the hands into the water. That is not the intention of a Russian twist. I'm not just moving my arms. I'm trying to brace my abs as hard as possible and then brace and then rotate and stay braced as I rotate. It's not just moving your arms around. So if I can, I'm going to take the feet off the floor, balance on the bum, means hip flexors and abs are engaged. I'm going to slowly rotate from one side to the other, stay as braced as possible as we're doing our Russian twists. So in our conditioning piece today, 15 minutes, 3 1-minute stations that we're going to do 5 times. In each minute station, 40 seconds of work, followed by 20 seconds of rest or transition. We start with bear crawls, make sure your knees don't touch the floor. From there we do human makers going through that complex, and last but not least, Russian twists. Have yourself a lovely workout from home, and we will see you all next time.